Previously, I talked about the mentor adjacent character archetypes and how I'm hellbent on staying away from those, at least for the foreseeable future. There might be one that I would be willing to consider including in my stories, a sort of a teacher who shows the characters, namely the protagonist, how to learn, how to approach a way of self improvement, or even consider the idea of bettering themselves on their own, developing their own plan and path without reliance on pre existing ways of doing things within that setting. That to me is much more interesting, much more desirable, both as the reader and as the writer as well, than a mentor who shows the protagonist a sort of step by step guide of how it has been done forever, and the protagonist maybe somehow figures out a way to slightly improve or discovers a slightly newish way to do things right before the final battle. I would like to create this guide, as in a person who guides someone towards something novel, something fresh, someone who helps the protagonist, for example, tailor their own fighting style to their body, one that accounts for the protagonist's specific traits, be it personality or physical traits. Someone who doesn't make a walkthrough for the protagonist, just instills the idea that the option exists, and all of that only in that quite improbable case when I actually decide to include such character whatsoever. I probably prefer the protagonist and the side characters as well, antagonists, to figure this out by themselves, even through pain and failures, rather than just blindly rely on what the previous generations of that world came up with. Maybe take inspiration occasionally, but the crux of it should come from them. And that obviously doesn't mean that the older generations within that setting can't come up with something new, realize something crucial for further development of whatever. Anyway, enough about mentors. This straight into the territory of protagonist talk, but for now, enough about this, and rather than that, more about the rapid arrows and their newest escapades. The harvest is now truly over, and so is their vacation at Mirek's uncle's farm. One last handshake, and they promise that they'll come back for the next season if need be to help as well. And then they arrive at the railway station, and at the platform where their train is, they spot another group of young people that are most probably also returning from the countryside where they spend the harvest season helping. These young men and women are riding the freight wagon, doors to which remain open during the journey. There are two young men sitting with their legs hanging outside of the wagon. One of them is playing a guitar. They are approached by the railway employee who warns them that an accident could happen if they remain seated like that it already cost many people their lives. Well, they are dismissive of him and brush it off with saying that they are wise enough to be able to discern any sort of danger. Well, after this not at all ominous event, the club boards the train, find an empty compartment, ready to enjoy their time. Mirek offers an alternative to watching the scenery go from the window in the form of a game from, I'm guessing, a magazine called Beaver's Den, while Redcap excitedly exclaims that their locomotive is about to be connected to the wagons and that they'll be on their way shortly. He even opens up the window to watch it. The train begins to move, and when he looks back, he can see the other group sitting in that cargo wagon, still with their legs in the open, even though the employee told them to stop doing that. And then in the next panel, there is a robust railing rapidly approaching. I'm unsure if it's of a bridge or some other railing, but it is there, and to Redcap's horror, one of the boys, or maybe both, fell out of the wagon and under the train. He rushes for the emergency brake. The train stops, the other passengers are confused, questioning what's going on, and the employee that warned them is lamenting the misfortune that befell the boys and the fact that no matter how many times he'd repeat his warnings, they would always fall on deaf ears until something terrible happens. Few other adults rush to him and they form a plan to at least attempt a rescue to save his life, drive him in a car back to the station, and then call an ambulance. And hopefully, the hospital will be able to save his life, if not his legs. Then we see the employee explaining what happened, that his leg got caught on the railing of a bridge. Actually, I was correct. And it dragged him, pulled him out of the wagon, and in the very last panel we see Mirek sternly talking about the boy's rather unfortunate fate, most probably going to lose both of his legs, and that they should always warn anyone who sits like that in the freight wagon with their legs out, say that something like this could happen to them as well. On a slightly lighter note, a quartet of young girls are walking past a suspiciously familiar building, discussing their club activities and a plan to create their own signboard, when something falls next to their feet, one of them wondering if it's not a meteor, the other questioning who threw that. When they pick up the package, there is a writing on it asking for whoever finds it to bring it to the Rapid Arrows. It sounds quite desperate, and fortunately for whoever sent this message, quote unquote, in a bottle, the girls decide to honor their request and they bring the package to the Rapid Arrows club room, where the five boys welcome them, thank them for delivering the package. And there is one detail that I've never noticed before, just did not pay enough attention. Speedy, wanting to look presentable for the ladies, is seen combing his hair in front of a pocket mirror. Then they open up the package, and in there is a letter from one of their good friends, Tonda Feather from the orphanage, asking for help because, as it turns out, the place seemed to be haunted. A mysterious nightmare ambushes most of the boys in there. They are losing their possessions. So, in the name of most of the residents of the orphanage, he is asking the Rapideros to come at night and investigate and hopefully somehow solve this supernatural phenomenon. Well, everyone's on board, ready to roll out and help their friend. Just Indra will need some help convincing his parents to let him out because this adventure is going to start at 7 p.m. and maybe go through the whole night. So the time they've agreed upon arrives and they are standing above a cargo lift. Everyone's fully geared and equipped with whatever they might need, and they are also more than ready to help anyone in need. And from behind a corner, Bohoj is leaning out, observing what the Rapideros are doing, clearly not understanding anything, with a question mark in a bubble appearing above his head. Well, it's 7 p.m., so Yindra uses a rock to knock on the lift, then it opens, and it's time to descend into the abyss, as Speedy puts it, into the lion's den, and he's waving the world goodbye with a white handkerchief, worried that a nightmare might eat them. This whole operation leaves Bohosh even more confused. The question marks dangerously multiplying above his head, so he just rushes to the front of the orphanage and warns a guard that 5 boys just entered the building through the lift, and even tells him that it's the rapid arrows. So the last thing for both this video and the chapter is the guard stomping down the stairs, grumbling that he'll show them arrows, he'll shoot them out of the building like the arrows they are. And this is where I'm going to stop. Next time, more side characters, more rapid arrows.